Metal Jesus, I'm back again with Mrs. Metal Jesus.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about some of our favorite heavy metal albums from the 1980s.
Yeah, so it's very exciting for us. We did want to make a quick differentiation because in the 80s there was a difference between hard rock, hair metal, or butt rock, and heavy metal. So we are focusing today really just on the heavy metal bands, or bands that we feel that are truly heavy metal bands, the edgier, harder, rockin' kind of bands. That doesn't mean that we aren't going to cover hair metal and other genres from the 80s later. There's just so much material to cover, we just can't do it all in one episode.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, to keep this video like under 2 hours, we basically have to, we just can't cover it all.
No.
So at the very end of this episode, we're going to throw in some honorable mentions, and there's some really good stuff there. Unfortunately, it's just not in our main list, but I think you guys are going to really like it. So
yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Let's take a look. Now, if you were a metal fan watching MTV in the 1980s, you watched a show called Headbangers Ball. I know. And one of the things I loved about that was that in the beginning, in the intro, they used music from an awesome side band from Anthrax called Stormtroopers of Death. This is the tablature for Speak English or Die.
He loved it so much, he bought the tablature.
That's right. I had to learn how to play these tunes, and they're all classics. So I wanted to mention this one. And it's really, really cool.
It's bitchin'.
So next up is a band that I love, and they were pretty rockin' in the early 80s, and that is from Germany, the Scorpions. And this is one of my favorite albums of theirs. It's called Blackout. They made some classic metal albums from the late 70s to the 80s.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
They did kind of start careening toward the hair metal stuff in the later 80s, mid to late 80s. Yeah, I mean, Still Loving You. Good song, but still.
Yeah, they did a bunch of power ballads, but but early on they had some great tunes like Dynamite was awesome, and of course Blackout and a bunch of other tunes, and so I kind of wanted to include it in here because it's some good stuff. It
is good. So the next band that we're going to cover wasn't really considered a real mainstream band, but they're an awesome band, more kind of thrash metal, is Megadeth.
Megadeth. Peace Sells.
Peace Sells. I love that song. That's one of my favorite songs of Megadeth.
What do you mean I don't support your system?
I gotta quit when I have to. So the next band we're going to cover, it's kind of a twofer because the lead singer was a force to be reckoned with on his own, and the band is also yet another iconic band that actually dates all the way back to the late 60s. So we thought we'd put these two together. They are Ronnie James Dio and Black Sabbath. And of course, Ronnie James Dio was huge in his own right in the 80s, as well as Black Sabbath. But they came together, and Ronnie James Dio was on the album of
Heaven and Hell. And for this one, we're going to show a really cool live DVD that I have. And what's cool about this is that Ronnie got together and performed live on stage most of the classic songs from that Black Sabbath album. The kind of sad thing is that this is the last live video recording of him.
Yeah.
I know, it's so sad.
We miss you, Dio.
He was an amazing singer.
Yeah.
And one of the highlights of this, if you haven't seen this, I highly recommend it because they do a massive epic version of the song Heaven and Hell. And it's something to behold. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Check it out for sure.
Now, speaking of Black Sabbath, you can't mention the 80s without mentioning the amazing career of Mr. Ozzy Osbourne.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Ozzy in his own right was the 80s. I mean, he was 80s hard rock metal.
Yeah, I mean, he had an amazing career, and most people didn't expect him to really take off. I mean, he was coming out of Black Sabbath, and he was kind of a singer without a band.
Yeah, but the two strengths he had is, one, he's a great singer and a great songwriter. And so, yeah, he just backed himself with some amazing musicians, and the rest is history. Yeah,
and so we're covering just one album here, which is Diary of a Madman, but he really had some classics like Bark of the Moon, he had Blizzard of Oz.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this happened over, main guitarist changes over the years. He had Jake E. Lee, he had Zakk Wylde, really awesome musicians and great albums.
So definitely Ozzy is definitely on the list. So the next band we're going to cover is one of my all-time favorite bands, Motorhead. the Ace of Spades album. Again, Ace of Spades is one of my all-time favorite songs. And I mean, look at these guys. They were amazing. They totally kind of married heavy metal and punk together. This album was put out in 1980, which is really, again, it was kind of groundbreaking for the time because that really hadn't been done yet. And I mean, look at these guys. They look like they're just going to kick your ass.
Yeah, I mean, this album doesn't sound dated at all.
No, it still really holds up today, which is, again, why it's on our favorite list. Also, you know, with the best Saturday night, in my opinion, this album with one of these. So as we all know, Mr. Metal Jesus is a religious man. So one of our top bands in this list is obviously
Judas Priest.
All right. We got two of them this time.
You know, Judas Priest in the early 80s and even the late 70s, they were pretty rock and they were pretty metal. I mean, heavy riffs. It was killer stuff.
Know, Rob Halford's voice. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, like Screaming for Vengeance. Screaming for Vengeance!
I love that song.
I know. I love Free Will Burnin'. That's such an awesome song. So we kind of wanted to cover multiple of their albums here because you can't just pick one. They had several that were awesome.
And you've got Another Thing Coming, Living After Midnight. I mean, we could, you know.
Yeah.
Breaking the Law. Love that.
We actually play several in our band.
Of course. Duh.
That's how worthy they are.
Our next band, we're going to kind of make you guess on. I wonder if you could figure it out. It begins with an S and ends with a Leia.
I've made my choice. Oh yeah. I mean, Slayer in the 80s was awesome. They redefined thrash music. They redefined how fast you could play your instruments. And one of my all-time favorite albums of any decade would be Rain and Blood by Slayer. I love this album. It's like 33 minutes long and it just never stops.
It just kicks you in the teeth, beginning to end.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this has to be the Slayer album of choice. Just for me, maybe I'm just old school that way.
I mean, yeah, this is an absolute
Slayer
masterpiece.
Still kicks ass today.
Yeah, and they made other albums as well, like South of Heaven. I mean, Seasons in the Abyss. It's all good. It's all good.
Pick one. Doesn't matter.
So for this next band, we couldn't really decide on a specific album.
No.
I mean, they're all so good. So we basically just kind of had to focus on the band themselves.
Yeah.
But we do have two albums here that we want to show you. Peace of Mind.
And Killers.
Good stuff. I also love the album Somewhere in Time. But you're a big fan of Eddie, their mascot.
I am a big fan of Eddie. I remember the first time I saw Eddie on an album, and I don't remember the album. I wish I might have been Number of the Beast, maybe. But I remember just seeing him going, you know, and my head just exploded on one side. I think my hair covers it now. But anyway, very cool mascot. One of the best rock mascots, in my opinion. Speaking of Number of the Beast, where is Number of the Beast?
Yeah, I don't have that on vinyl.
What?
I know.
What?
I know, I'm sorry.
We're gonna get divorced. Whatever.
And then finally we get to one of my all-time favorite bands and albums in the 1980s, and that is the mighty Metallica and Master of Puppets. Now this is probably the obvious choice. It's such a iconic and like masterful album. I mean, it's
all
awesome.
songs.
Yeah, it's awesome from beginning to end. As a matter of fact, to get in the mood for this video, we're actually tonight just watching a live DVD of Metallica.
Yes, and it was called Cunning Stunts, which I'm sure any Metallica fan has on their DVD repertoire. And it was filmed in 1997.
In your hometown.
Of Fort Worth, Texas. And it just looked amazing. I wish I would have been there for that.
I mean, and they play all the great songs.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, live version of Creeping Death kicks ass. It's really cool.
Well, I mean, that's a great thing about Metallica is that they were very melodic, they're very technical, and they incorporated a bunch of different elements into the music. I mean, they're thrash, but then they would kind of mellow out for a little while.
But then they come back with this force. Which is really cool.
Almost punk at times.
Almost, yeah. But they keep the heaviness of the metal, which is nice. And again, the songwriting is really cool. Again, Creeping Death is one of my favorites, and I just love the lyrics. It's just so neat. I never thought, you know, it's a creepy part of the Bible anyway, with, you know, the angel of death and Passover, but it's like, you don't think somebody's going to write a metal song about that.
Yeah, and it's awesome too.
Yeah,
right?
and it's just like, ooh, it's kind of creepy.
I mean, Metallica had a bunch of really great albums in the 80s. I mean, this is just one of them. They basically had Kill 'Em All, which is a classic, and Ride the Lightning, and a bunch more. So it's just a no-brainer to put these guys at the top of our list.
Definitely.
So that was a quick look at some of our favorite heavy metal bands of the 1980s, but there's a whole other section that we haven't covered, and of course that is hair metal. We mentioned that in the beginning, so we will be doing another episode just on hair metal.
And we'll continue to keep doing these because, again, there's so much music out there to cover. You just can't shove it all into one episode. Also, as we mentioned at the beginning, we do have some honorable mentions that we wanted to add at the end of this episode, because there's just, again, 80s just had some amazing music, and we just want to cover those.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you didn't see your favorite before, well, just hold on. It'll probably be in the honorable mentions.
We're hoping.
Yeah, we're hoping. If not, in the comments below, you can tell me all about it. But as always, I want to thank you for watching our channel.
And thank you for subscribing.
Right.
Take care.
Take care.